Alrighty, what's up, guys? I'm excited to announce this animation system that I've been working on. Going to be having it available on the marketplace and my itch.io. I'll have the links in the description for that. But yeah, I'm excited to release it. I'm calling it 3SeqsD. How witty of me. But anyway, yeah. Show off, obviously what's going on. This is what you'll get in the demo. Got some little skeleton guys. Got the main character. Got a couple animations. So I got the idol here. I've got a jump, and it works no matter what angle you're at. I'm not a great animator, so if he looks kind of dumb, that's just because of that. That's solely on me. The code is just taking the points and moving them around and interpolating them. I am the terrible animator. But I got a little attack animation, and it's so easy to implement. I tried to make it more user friendly than what I was doing with it, because on my last video that I had, I also added in there to where he'll actually kind of rotate around. So it just adds that extra level of depth. But the last video I just had a straight up player model that was hard coded in, but I've actually created a system now that I'm going to kind of go through and show you guys a little bit throughout this video, just kind of how to set this up and just how easy it can be once you get it set up. Once you initially set up your character and you've got it all set up, pretty much you can just copy and paste it for these like these little skeleton guys here. Just copied the player code, except for a couple things, so that way that they didn't have the same sprite as him. But anyway, so let's jump on over into that real quick. So here we've got, all right, so I'll go through some of these animations real quick. So we just got a little idle animation, which goes back and forth. Run animation, pretty basic stuff. But the best part, if you don't know and you're just watching this video, is this is all you have to make to get all that you just saw. So all you have to do is just make some animations, and you can apply them and change the bones and everything like that. And what's really awesome that I really love about it too is it works with the sequences that gamemaker provides. So you can do sub nest sequences, right? So here I got an example. Here's a jump. Here's a little jump animation. That's all he does. He just jumps. And I've got a little land animation, right? So I can go over here, put these two animations together, and create a jump and land. All I have to do is call this animation, boom, it'll play it, and I'll show you some of that too. Here's my attack animation. You can always set the different speeds too within each animation. As you see, idols at 3, 12, because I've only made them 8 frames long, just so it's easier for me to edit. But you could get really in depth with this if you really wanted to. Yeah, the land, when you subsequence it has to be 60 frames a second. That's the only one that's kind of weird, but or where you can't really set the speed necessarily. But I mean, you just set the speed in your sub nested sequences. But anyway, so onto the player here. This is, I know it looks like a lot of code, but it's because we have a lot of bones. All you have to do literally for the system is type this script here, animation system create, the starting animation, and then the interpolation speed. I'm going to boost that up to 0.3. That's just how quickly the bones and the armatures all interpolate between different animations, so you get a lot smoother outcome. All you have to do is literally, define some variables and create the armature, add the bones, and you add them in order to what it is in the animation. So I've got this left arm here, which is actually left arm, bone arm, left upper, and then bone arm, left lower. That's what these two are, right? So in the I don't know why I have that room open. It's really important to make sure that these are in order. with top down, left right. That's the way I've designed it. You can do it other ways. It basically just searches for these bones anyway, but it'll make your life a lot more organized and easier just to make sure you're always, especially because in the sprites here, these are basically creating references to IDs of armatures, right? Or bones rather. So whenever you go to change the sprite, this however many arguments you have in here. Argument 1 will be whatever this bone was. This first argument here was, right? So left leg, upper, um, if you want to change the sprite, you have to make sure the order is correct, right? I won't get too much into that. I've got a whole documentation too that you can look through that I've spent three grueling almost 4 hours on, and it looks real nice, and hopefully it's up to the game maker standard as far as documentation, but you can look through some of that. But anyway, yeah, all you have to literally set up is you create your armatures, you add the bones to the armature, then you just bind the armature. You don't even really need all of this stuff, right? This is just this is because we're in the player character right here. I wanted him to have different sprites, obviously, but by default, it will go ahead and whatever sprites you have in your animation, that's the sprite that it'll set everything to. Hence why I had the little skeleton guys. I just didn't set any new sprites for their animations there. So yeah, you just create the armature, add the bones, bind it, and you're pretty much good to go. I mean, obviously set the sprites, set some colors, and then after that, right, so that's the bare minimum. And then I've got a bunch of depth stuff here. I'll go over that in just a second. I'm going to close that for now. But all you have to add after the bare minimum, which is armature create, add bones, and bind, is just armature update, and then you update those little specific variables there. I've got some easy macros in here, like armature index, armature end y, and then the end angle. So you saw that sword in there. Obviously, the sword is not in here, but that's just how easy it is to attach like a weapon, right? And I could pick any arm. I could do it to the left arm, right arm. So attaching, something to the end. And then the angle, I had to do some, got to do some math so that way that the sword is always, standing up and whatnot. You do need to know a little bit of math going into this, to do certain things. But if I hadn't added this little end part here, it would just point the same direction as basically where the hand's pointing, right? Or where the end of the arm is. Now, I had thought about creating an auto depth system, but I really wanted it to be open. So you don't even have to make humanoids, right? You can make a little inchworm that consists of, 4 bones, right? I wanted it to be pretty open so that way you could literally create any animation that you want, any style, add any bones, and not be constricted to stuff that I've already pre-programmed, right? I just pre-programmed it to interpolate where it should be if you rotate it around 360 degrees. So, but in this example that comes with this, I've included just some of the depth stuff that I'm doing, so that way I get the correct, because each of these armatures is a separate object, so you can set the depths however you want, because they're individual objects. And then so yeah, I've got all this depth stuff here, and then I've got a script called animation depth, which actually sets the depth for the entire, that'll set your regular depth for the object, like your object depth. Normally you do like depth equals -y. You don't have to do that. This will automatically do the animation depth and your player depth. So that way, if you're doing like traditional RPG stuff, it's just the same, right? Even though I've got all these separate depths, they're just being, you see here, depth, they're just being added or subtracted on top of what I've already got. So, but yeah, that's like literally pretty much all the code that you would have to do. Obviously, I've got a bunch of extra stuff in here to show off some stuff like I've got, just like some basic player movement. I got it to, this is the script that, or this is the set of, code that lerps it around. You don't have to do that. I just did it for, why not? But that way, you get the smooth turn in there, and it's so easy to set up. Like once you have the character created, and then you're updating correctly. You've got your depths created, which, like I said, you can just steal this, but that's probably the hardest part. Is the depth control by far. But once you have all you have to do is just literally animation set. I mean, you're done, right? So speed's greater than 0.5, we're running. If not, we're idling. And if we're this is also, for some reason, GameMaker right now is showing this as like a function because it was a function, but I got rid of it and now it's a macro. But animation current is a macro that'll just return whatever animation you're currently running in the system. So if it's not the jump and land and it's not attack, then we know that we're like moving around. We're all free. If we press space, then just set the animation to that, and it'll start doing its thing. Or, if we press the F key and attack, it'll start doing its thing. And then I've got a macro called animation end that just checks to see if the animation is finished. And if it's finished, go back to the idle state. Super simple, super easy to do. Within these animations, there's a couple things like that if you don't know about them, like broadcast messages, I've got some broadcast messages set up. I just kind of tried to add in a couple extra things to kind of show how it can actually be used in like a state system kind of way. I mean, I know this really isn't a great state system here set up, but on the object player right here on the broadcast message, this is just standard broadcast message stuff, and it's just stop. And then I've got a lunge, so that way I know, I can actually call from the animation here when we're attacking. Then we want to lunge forward, and then at this point, then you want to stop, right? And then I just use that same broadcast message for the land. So like if you're running and then you jump, you'll keep going that direction until you land, and then you'll stop, and that just sends the broadcast message to the player there. So hopefully it's not too confusing. You don't have to draw anything. This is just, you can draw stuff if you want, but like I said, all these bones or all these armatures and bones are separate objects, which is really useful, but at the same time, it does have some downsides. So one of the biggest downsides being performance. It doesn't really mess with it too bad. If you have like one or two in there, you're not going to lose that much. But each like this character animation right here, we've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 3 bone or 3 objects per basically limb, right, on those. So there's like 16 or 17 objects per model basically. I realize that that's not optimal. And in the future, what my plan is to do, because I'm done with this. I've spent the past 4 days like nonstop trying to get this system going well. But the idea of eventually, just because I want to include it in my own game, and I'm already, running a lot. I've already got a lot of CPU usage going on. But eventually, I want to try and set it up still using the same system, but it'll have a DS list, or create a DS list that stores all of the sequence struct data in it. So that way that you'll have well, you probably wouldn't even need 17 if you can have just an armature, right? So you'd have 6 armatures, or both legs, both arms, a body, and a head, but they would contain all the struct data for each animation, right? So just setting up like a global thing that reads through these, picks up all the struct data that it needs, and then it basically, these armatures will just run through and draw everything accordingly, and then you wouldn't even need the actual bones, the actual bone objects. But as of right now, basically the bone objects replace these bone objects in these animations. And yeah, obviously GameMaker is still pretty early in its development, or not really development, but their with their sequences, there's a couple things I found that were missing. One of the biggest hurdles that I had was the not being able to get instances from sequences. So, these are all objects, but GameMaker, whenever you play the sequence, it'll create all these objects, but the only data that you can retrieve from the sequence is the object index. So you can't get, even though they're totally different instances, right? Like I debug message every time that a bonehead was created, and it would give a different instance ID. So they're different instances, but you can only get the data for object indexes in the sequence, which is super annoying because another kind of drawback to the system. I wouldn't say it's a huge drawback, but you can't just have like one bone and just rename it, a couple different ways. Now, eventually, if I can get the struct data, whatever these are named in here, and I can find that, and if I can figure out how to do that, then yeah, you could. I don't know. I don't even know if you could get the instance ID, but anyway, yeah, you have to have, if I go over here to the bones, you have to have a different bone. No duplicates. I've got it written multiple times in the documentation. No duplicates, no duplicates, no duplicates, because you can have the same bones in each animation. Different animations are fine, right? That's the point. But you can't have, like, this particular object, bone, leg, right, upper. I can't have two of those in one animation, right? Because the only data that I can retrieve from sequences in GameMaker is the object index, and so basically that's what's happening in this armature add bones, is you're just adding the object indexes here, so that way within the system it knows what to look for each armature, right? So left arm armature is going to look for an object called left leg upper and left leg lower, right? So that's a downside. That's another thing that kind of sucks. Is not, because realistically, it just makes, once you have a T-pose, like I've got a little T-pose here, a little T-pose guy. If you set him up, you're good. You just copy and paste or duplicate the sequence, and then just move him around. But just to have all these bones to keep up with when you're creating a T-pose is kind of a pain. It'd be nice if it was just like, oh, here's a bone, rename it, and I can check and figure out the instance IDs of everything. And I don't know. Like I said, the plan in the future is definitely to make it a little bit more, I don't know, less taxing, I guess, but it works, and it doesn't take a ton. Like I said, I mean, if you don't have a ton of instances, and I've got deactivate functions, or deactivate scripts as well for deactivating the animation system, so you can, if they're outside the view, you can activate or deactivate the animation system, and it'll just deactivate all the objects within that whatever instance you're calling, and then you can always just use the regular activate and deactivate functions as well, because it's all objects, so same thing. So I mean, if you do that, it's not too bad. But like I said, in the future, I would like to be able to, if I can figure it out, actually access the animation or the sequence structs themselves, and just get all that data and just do it that way. But anyway, yeah. This is just this is the system. Like I said, it's just so easy to use once you have it set up, and it's really not that difficult to set up. It doesn't take that much time, and animations take almost no time, right? So, and of course, with this example, I've included this, so you can always copy and paste this. But if you wanted bigger, bigger sprites, bigger animations, I think each of these little limbs are only like 8 to 12 pixels, wide or tall, whatever. So, it would work with, 64 by 64, 128 by 128 sprites. I mean, it'll all work, because the way that the system's set up is just to, like even this, how it's, everything's kind of stretching there. It doesn't matter. You can have whatever size you want in there. These are actually sprites. So I was real happy once I figured that out. Once I got that figured out. But anyway, yeah. I hope that you guys can check out the system. Show me what you can do with it. I definitely want to see like what people can pull off with it, and I feel like someone that's has more patience. Which part of mine's just because I've been literally just coding all this and trying to figure it out. I know almost everything about sequences now. So on the animation front, I didn't spend a ton of time refining these animations. Right, this is just to get it out the door, basically. But I would love to see what you guys do with it. Probably just gonna throw it up for like $1.99. I was originally gonna do 99 cents, but since I got the sprites in there, and it's just been just so much work to get it working with everything properly. And it's not too difficult to. It's not so hard to break as it initially was. I feel like $1.99 is a fair price for it, considering how much you can actually get out of this. If you put enough in, the infrastructure is there. So I think that it's worth that price, and I hope you guys do too, especially after playing with it. But yeah, I'm real excited. I think the next step that I'll do is I'm just going to leave the system as is, and then maybe over the next couple weeks I'm going to go back to my game for a little bit and work on some stuff with that. But if I come up with cool like animations or something, I might throw them up just for free, just like as an add-on, right? You can just download different animations or different sequences with the sprites and everything like that. I was thinking like a dog, make a little dog, make some animals make some animal animations that you can just grab and have some presets basically of different models and characters and stuff. So we'll see. But anyway, yeah, I look forward to seeing what some people do with it, and I hope that you guys enjoy it. I hope it makes your life a lot easier. I know me as a programmer, I am not the greatest at art, and I do not have a ton of patience for it. So hopefully, if you're someone like that, you'll find some use in the system and some value out of it. So thank you guys, and I'll talk to y'all soon. Peace.